4th and 1, Michigan State Recruiting, a different forum for us. We're talking football, but here we are at a pretty special event.
Brad, good to be back with you here in Chicago at the Champions Classic. It's good versus evil, right versus wrong, 1 versus 2, Izzo versus Calipari. Let's just get it on.
It is a pretty exciting event. We are taping this before the game, so due to the magic of television and online television, the result, you know we don't. Here's this guy joining us. How are you, friend? We talk all about football points. First and 10 recruiting. Last week, I got in a car accident. Didn't have time to tape this with you. We are back. There's so much going on.
And most importantly, you're okay.
So far.
We don't want all those ladies worried about their WXYZ crooner.
Only one that matters. So there's been so much going on, obviously, with the result of the Michigan State game. Mark Dantonio visiting Detroit lately, I hear. You know more, tell me.
Absolutely. Right after that big win against Michigan, they loaded everybody up. They headed to Detroit and did a mass visit. It was like my wife and her sister shopping on Black Friday. I mean, they hit all the schools. They saw everybody. They spent time there, and it was a great event. I mean, you saw players tweeting out how great to spend time with Coach Dantonio and the staff and everyone else. It was a major event.
Are these commits, recruits, people they're looking at? More insight, maybe some names they're looking at.
Oh, there's several different. I don't want to give just one specific because the moment you leave one out, somebody feels offended, like, oh, are they not important? Let's just say they were visiting every potential recruit in Detroit. I mean, potential, committed, not committed. If you were in that school and they were there, they wanted to talk to you.
So this impact that we've talked about on the first episode of having Curtis Blackwell on the program. Here's the bye week. Here's the staff in Detroit. Its roots already reaching. Is that an impact from Curtis?
Oh, yeah, it's a massive one. And here's something that Curtis did. Because he handled strong mind, strong body, and he saw how so many other schools recruited, he's bringing that whole cornucopia of ideas and ways and methods. So Michigan State, man, they're pulling stuff out of the hat, and they're just like, hey, we're going to try this, we're going to try that, and it's working. It's getting them a lot of success.
A question I get a lot as we move on to second down. People talk about recruiting. They want to know, what's the number at? How many people are left in this class that Mark's trying to fill out?
That's a great question. Late summer, Mark Dantonio and I were talking, and he told me up 20 is about the number. Now, I'm going to say this. If there's a big, high impact, maybe they would go to 21, 22 and do some work into the numbers. But 20's that number, and they're at 17 right now.
When you look at maybe the SEC programs that fill things out with 35 players, and sometimes they make cuts on the opening week, opening month, is that something we would expect from a program now on the rise?
Absolutely not. Mark Dantonio, remember, this is a program that said to Arthur Ray, you stay as long as you want. You got cancer, you're a Spartan. Never really played any significant downs for Michigan State. No, that's not how Mark Dantonio does it. Doesn't want to do it that way. SEC, they do things a little bit different. Unfortunately, I'm not naming any specific programs. Is that going to sneak into the Big Ten as they get some coaches from the SEC? Columbus, we don't know. And I'm not saying we're going to watch it because some of the other methods of the SEC have come in.
No, and I prompted that not because, I guess, of what Michigan State's been doing, but maybe because of questions about recruits and the 4-star, 5-star, and the methods that are being used to try to compete with the SEC.
And I agree. And let me just say, when I make that comment about bringing the SEC and did the joke about Columbus, I think some of that commitment to recruiting is not a bad thing. I don't think everything Urban's brought to the Big Ten has been bad. I didn't mean it that way. I just meant it more joking.
Bottom line, they're winning. I mean, they haven't lost since he's been there.
Yep, I agree.
When you look at maybe who this class could be filled out with, if that number is 20, if there is a number that could be bumped up, who are those final targets?
Well, I'll tell you, that's a great question. And if you're looking at 3 guys, I think they'd love to add a defensive end. We go to Darius Slade. We've talked about Darius on this program.
Times.
Yeah, ad nauseum. They would really like to go with him. I think they'd like to add an offensive lineman. I think there's several different targets here and a wide receiver. I think if they could fill out with those 3 things, they'd be some happy campers.
When you look across the board at players we've talked about on this show, one of the first you brought to me was Madre London. Here he is on 4th down now, making his commitment on your show, and an announcement Spartan fans liked.
Absolutely, right on the radio show. And you remember, before we taped it, I said, hey, next Monday we're going to have a commit on my show, but we couldn't say it. We didn't want to. We wanted to honor his wishes. But that's a great back, a Reggie Bush type back. Now, I try to always use a player to describe someone's style. I'm not saying he's Reggie Bush, but I'm saying that's a guy. He's a guy that's going to be all 3 downs. Yeah. He can block, he can catch, he can run. Madre London was a high target, and let me tell you, there was a lot of celebrating in East Lansing when he committed on Spartan Nation Radio.
Reggie Bush is a high praise, but when you look at what he can bring to the table, just from a running back standpoint, we've talked repeatedly about what Le'Veon Bell brought to give the Spartans that option on offense. he can be that every down back.
Oh, without a doubt, and I really like his style. I'm going to tell you this, if I had to pick a Spartan running back, it reminds me a lot of Cedric Irvin. He can just pretty much do it all. He's a three-down back. I really am impressed with this young man.
Our extra point we usually leave for current freshmen on the roster, but this is kind of an interesting spin, maybe talking about someone else, not on other teams' rosters, but on other teams' commitment lists. Decommitment's a big part of the chess match here. We talked earlier in the season when that offense was still finding its rhythm, still, as you called it, anemic. Maybe if there was a threat of decommits for Michigan State. Now it's maybe a turn of the tide with the Spartans now in that conversation to win the Big Ten.
You know, it's funny because Kentucky's playing Michigan State here behind us tonight, but I know of a couple of recruits that have committed to Kentucky. Stoops Troops, the Big Blue Nation, that are reaching out to some other schools. Not going to say what other schools they are. And this is the time of year when you see programs that maybe aren't having the success that they expect to have. Guys all of a sudden start saying, I don't know if I want to go there. So don't be surprised. I'm not calling it. I'm not saying it'll happen. But don't be surprised if maybe some guys that Michigan State was interested in that you knew about, if they start calling Michigan State, or maybe some guys Michigan State was interested in but committed early before the fans found out, start getting a hold of Michigan State. And I'm going to throw one little additional extra point in just for the Dapper Dan himself here from Brother Rice. I talk about freshmen. How about Gavin Schilling on this team? Last week during the game, after the game, Tom Izzo talked about them needing to shoot free throws. So the game ended at 9. I'm doing my work, my video, writing my articles till almost midnight. As I leave, young Gavin Schilling, the freshman, who just turned 18 Sunday, was still in the practice gym shooting shots, told me he wanted to get a couple of thousand shots up hours after the game. Wow. That tells you about a freshman that's committed to winning. That's
a workout that would maybe put you and I in a nap mode for about 3 weeks. That's impressive doing that after a game.
And how about everybody, look how good you look. You got the Mad Men look going here.
I don't have my wallet on me, but when I do, I'll pay you for the compliment. I appreciate it. Hondo, it's good to be back with you, my friend, as always.
Thank you, Brad Draper.
I do love Mad Men. Hondo Carpenter, he's one of the best out there. Follow him on Twitter, @Hondo Carpenter. His stuff is fantastic on Spartan Nation. This is a vital time in recruiting. Got to close out well. This is the guy to go to, and this is 4th and 1, Michigan State Recruiting.